Hello everyone, it's Jaden for Student Pages. Welcome back to the series. Today, we are here with Jeff Bergman, a man of many voices and an incredible talent. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well.
What's up, Doc?
I love it. I love it, Jeff. All right, so Jeff, you've had an absolutely incredible career so far. You've taken on some huge roles, adapted some legacy characters like Bugs Bunny, like Daffy Duck, crazy roles. But your latest one is Mr. Potato Head in the new Toy Story 5 film that we've got coming up. What a crazy role to inherit. How do you feel about being able to take on that voice for such an incredible character?
Well, I have to tell you, Jane, I am so blessed. I have had such a special career, and actually, I've just gotten to do so much of what I wanted to do. I mean, when I grew up as a child, I mean, I had my favorite characters were Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck and Foghorn Leghorn and Yogi Bear, Fred Flintstone, and to be able to grow up, to be able to do these characters for real and get paid for it it's incredible, and it's a dream come true. So, and then of course, having the opportunity to be in a Toy Story movie is really epic. I haven't done any interviews yet about it, so this is the first time I'm talking just a little bit about it, but I really am not able to say anything other than I am so honored to be a part of this franchise. And so, but maybe what we'll do is we'll come back to that at a later interview and we'll talk more about it.
Oh, absolutely.
But I'm
Yeah.
so thrilled. Yeah, I'm so thrilled to have that role. It's an incredible franchise to be a part of.
Yeah. No, I mean, obviously with NDAs and things, it doesn't surprise me you're not allowed to go fully in depth yet. I will say though, so I imagine you're probably allowed to touch on this. With a character like Mr. Potato Head, this is a bit out there with this. But obviously we already sort of understand who he is and his character from the previous films. When you went for the role, did you see any similarities between yourself and him? Was there anything that drew you to it particularly?
Oh, well, that's a great question. I mean, I somehow always seem to get these very New York type of roles. I mean,
Bugs Bunny is, a combination of the Brooklyn and the Bronx, Doc.
and so, Mr. Potato Head's the same thing. I mean, even when I did Donald Trump for our cartoon president, again, another very New York character. So I seem to get all these very kind of brashy, New Yorky type characters. So they sort of, although they're different vocally, they do have that New York accent. So, it's kind of interesting when I think about that.
Yeah. No, I totally see the vision, Now that I think about it, I think of your backlog. I'm like, yeah, I actually I can really see the pattern almost now. I mean, so obviously outside of, the actual voice performance and things, are there any kind of scripts that you typically go for? How does the process work with scripting when you have to play characters that are so out there? What could you actually look for in a script that makes you like a story when that's your focus?
Wow. Well, I'll tell you, sometimes you read a script, you see a character, and there's a basic description, and immediately you connect to that character. And sometimes if there's a visual that goes along with that, where you see a drawing of the character, some kind of a rendering, you're like, wow, I totally get that. It's like, Mr. Potato Head. I'm looking at the actual Mr. Potato. I'm thinking, good God, do I look like a Mr. Potato Head? I mean, do I? But sometimes the more descriptive they can be about the character, the more it gives you a sense of who that character is. You have that much more context to be able to find a voice. For example, give you a good example. Recently just became the voice of Mr. Monopoly. And so, in addition, and that will come out in March, where my voice will be attached to the games and so forth. And so the voice for that was like very sort of mid-Atlantic, but they didn't want a British accent, but they wanted it refined. But they didn't want it too old because they wanted it to have some pep and some zip to it. But he had to have credibility, and he's got to be Mr. Moneybag. So, I mean, there's like a legacy with Mr. Monopoly. So we all got on a Zoom call. I did a bunch of readings for them, and this was the voice that we came up with. Hello there, I'm Mr. Monopoly. That's right, this is your day. You're going to be rich. Well, all right, try the spin and money will come to you. Just incredible. And so,
Wow.
but it really helped, Jaden, because they gave me so much context about what they wanted, and I had to try to visualize that top hat and the white mustache and the kind of tuxedo that he wears. So I'm trying to keep all that in mind and have a voice that has texture, personality to kind of match that description, because that's an iconic character. We know what Mr. Monopoly looks like.
Hmm. I mean, has Mr. Monopoly had a voice before you took it on? Was there actually previous guys?
Through the years, and Mr. Monopoly, I think, was created in the early, late 1930s, and so he didn't really have a voice, I think, till maybe around the 60s and 70s. And then they had different, kind of people. Sometimes you would see him on camera, and there would be a real person playing Mr. Monopoly. And then they had different voices through the years. So I think they really wanted to nail down his vocal personality. So I kind of felt like I had a little bit of context from previous actors, but yet I could do, kind of my own thing. And they all just said, okay, that's the voice. That's it.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that is fascinating when there's been no one iteration. You've got all these different kinds to draw from. So I think being able to take that and make it your own, that's not something that many people are capable of.
Well, I'll tell you, sometimes it happens by accident. I was the voice of the Boomerang announcer for the Boomerang Network for, I don't know, maybe 15 years or so. And so many people, like in their late 20s, used to come home from school, watch Boomerang cartoons, and they would hear, it's all coming back to you on Boomerang. That's right, it's Scooby-Doo from Boomerang on Cartoon Network. And I didn't realize how many people knew that voice, because I guess they'd be about mid late 20s, and they'd come home from school. They were 6, 7, 8 years old. That was the voice that they all knew. So when Cartoon Network came to me and they said, we want a voice that's got to be friendly for kids, but we also want it to be exciting and maybe a little retro, a little nostalgia. So that was the voice that I came up with for Boomerang from Cartoon Network. So that was super fun, that I didn't have to match anything, whereas, if I'm doing, I'm the licensed actor in the United States to do the voice of Dumbledore for the Harry Potter epic universe in Hollywood and Orlando. And that was a challenge, because you're talking about Michael Gambon. I mean, and it's he's British, and people are such huge fans of Harry. I had to work like crazy on that character because I know fans, it's their childhood and it means so much to them. So you really have to get that close. That took forever to be able to do that voice.
No, especially like when you say when it's iconic characters, that is a massive responsibility as well, because you have the fans behind it as well who are gonna, because fans online are so critical, but a lot of them are very celebratory as well. You just got to. I think that's a lot more down to luck than it is talent with fan reactions sometimes.
Well, it's funny. I was in Telford, England, and I was doing a Comic-Con fan expo there. And so I met a lot of people from Manchester and people from Liverpool. And so I think I was signing something, and some girl said I did the voice of Dumbledore for her. And the line that I usually go to is,
Harry, there will always be help in Hogwarts for those that ask for it.
And this 8-year girl said to me, oh, brilliant. And it was just the greatest reaction in the world. It was just so real and down to earth. And I just thought, oh my God, I wanted to fold her up and put her in my pocket and take her home.
Oh, that's adorable. I mean, yeah, Dumbledore, Mr. Monopoly, Bugs Bunny, now Mr. Potato Head. You've got so many characters under you, but they're so broad. With the Looney Tunes, I suppose there's sort of a general vibe that you get with them. But then you've got all these other roles. So I'm curious, what is your favorite kind of character to take on? Do you even have a favorite, or do you just go for anything?
Well, I would say I do like the rabbit.
But I love Fred Flintstone because it's a big voice. Yabba-Dabba-Doo! And of course, Barney Rubble.
And of course, Daffy Duck. Look no further, for I am he for whom thou thinkest. I am Friar Duck.
And then I say foghorn leghorn. I say a rooster, that is. Nice boy, but about as sharp as a bowling ball.
So I noticed that they're big characters. Big,
Oh yeah.
sloppy, like Sylvester. I'll get that little yellow bird if it's the last thing I do.
Then there's Yosemite Sam. Well, say your prayers, you varmint.
I mean, I love the big characters. I just do. I love them. I love
That
big
makes so. After that, that makes so much sense. You know, it's like, wow, yeah, just any character that you can go boom with, I see it. So, I mean, yeah, how did this all begin for you? You know, because as I say, to be able to take on all these characters is one thing, but how did you actually get into the position where you could take on these characters? How did those opportunities arise, and what did you do to train to get them?
How much time do you have?
Ah, I got all day. I got all day to listen to you.
Well, it's my goodness. When you're little, I think some kids express a desire for performance, and I think you can often tell that in somebody. Is hi, look at me, and they want to be on the stage. And so for me, I was a bit like that, but what was a little different about me is I had an ear for things. And I think my parents picked up on that. Now, I don't think I sounded like anybody that I could do at 7 years old because as guys, our voices don't mature until we're 15, 17, something like that. But my parents said, there's something about, it's like I would try to do the president of the United States, whoever that was, at that time. And I would get close with the mannerisms. And so once my voice started to get a little deeper in high school, my parents were like, wow, you got something here. And so then I became the class clown in high school. So, which got me into a lot of trouble on in terms of academics, but nevertheless, I gained some popularity with my friends as students. But I think I started to get serious after I met Mel Blanc, who is obviously the original voice of Bugs Bunny in the Looney Tunes. And I met him while I was getting my undergraduate degree at Pitt. And that really changed everything for me. Had I not gone to the University of Pittsburgh, I don't know what would have happened in my career. It could have turned out very differently. But he was giving a performance lecture. I showed up. And he was great, showed a couple of Bugs Bunny cartoons. They had a reception for him at the student union. And then I got it in my mind. I thought, I wonder if he's still in Pittsburgh. Maybe I could catch him before he goes back to Los Angeles. So, Jaden, it's crazy, but I literally started running to the hotel that he was staying at on the campus. So now it's 10 o'clock at night. And I'm thinking to myself, what am I doing? I'm outside his hotel room door, and I knock on the door, and I hear a voice that says, just a jiffy. And I recognize that voice immediately. I know who that voice is. The door opens up. There's a man standing there in a red smoking jacket with gold chains around his neck. And I said, very quickly, Mr. Blank, I'm your biggest fan. I love Bugs Bunny. I was a student at University of Pittsburgh. I was there at your lecture. I'm the biggest fan in the world. If I could just spend 2 or 3 minutes with you and ask you 3 questions, I promise I won't hurt you. And so he looked at me and he said to me, now, are you Jewish or Italian? And of course, my first thought was, well, what's going to get me in, And so I said, I'm Jewish. And he said, come on in. So I come into the room. We sit on those 2 twin beds opposite each other for about 45 minutes. He asked me what I'm doing in school, what my major is, do I like school? And he even asked me if I did some voices, and at the time I did not do any cartoon voices at all. So, and if I did, I don't know if I would have done them in front of him, you know. But he was so encouraging and so nice, and said to me, "Look," he said, "keep practicing the voices that you're working on, and get your degree. And if you ever get out to Los Angeles, look me up." So that from that moment on, it changed the entire trajectory of my whole life. It was as though the sky was brighter, the sun was brighter, the sky was bluer, and I knew just what I wanted to do. And so that really is the start of everything. After that, I began obsessively working on the Looney Tunes characters and just voices in general. And so I was about 20. Yeah, I was 20 years old.
Oh, that's wild. I can't believe I didn't know that you, who is now the voice of so many Looney Tunes, met the original dude who was the voice of the Looney Tunes. It's like I imagine now, if photographic evidence of that existed, of you two face to face at that door, that'd be an all-timer photo. That would be a piece of history.
Oh, you know it, Jaden. If I had a phone, a selfie, oh yeah. But we had nothing like that. And what's interesting is not, I would say, let's see, 9 years after I met him, he passed away on my actual 29th birthday. Now,
Wow.
yeah. And then 2 weeks later, Steven Spielberg was auditioning for all the Looney Tunes voices for his Steven Spielberg Tiny Toons. And so I had to audition one at a time: Bugs, Elmer, Daffy, Sylvester, Foghorn, Yosemite Sam, so Tweety, and I booked all those voices, and very quickly it was all happening. And then within a few months, I had the distinction, the honor to be directed by Chuck Jones, one of the, as you well know,
Wow.
creators of the cartoons. And it was the first time that Chuck Jones had directed somebody that wasn't Mel Blanc doing the voices. So it was very nerve-wracking at first, but he was like a master. I mean, it's like being in front of Leonardo da Vinci or Michelangelo. You're in good stead. He was the captain of the ship. And it might have been my all-time favorite session because he knew those characters so well. He created them. So we did a 3-minute cartoon that ended up being the title sequence before Gremlins 2 in 1990.
I needed to ask you about Gremlins 2. It is one of my households. So there's 4 of us in my house.
Really?
It's our favorite film of all time.
Oh wow, that's so cool.
My housemate Cole has 5 life-size replica Gremlins downstairs. He's the biggest fan of that movie in the world.
Well, they're doing a follow-up. They're doing a new.
I've heard. They need to get moving on it.
Yeah, I agree. Totally. Yeah, that's so cool. Yeah, I mean that has a real cult following. Gremlins and Gremlins.
Oh yeah,
2. Yeah,
mm.
yeah. So
but you were saying, so yeah, that was a kickoff point, the opening of Gremlins, when you had them in the credits and the opening and things.
yeah, and then I remember we just did this as a lark. I started to do some improv, and they gave me some ideas. So at the end of the film, in the credits, when you're watching the credits in Gremlins 2, Daffy will pop into frame, and he'll say things like, "It's over. The movie's over. Why don't you people go home? Don't you have homes? Go, go, go. It's over." And so we just had a lot of that stuff filler at the end. And it's now so funny to see it now. It just kind of pops up. It just comes up on the screen as the credits are rolling.
Yeah, I mean, what was the decision to have those characters in Gremlins 2? It's so bizarre. I mean, obviously, I know the story behind the film and that they needed to go all out because that was the only way they'd get the original director to come back, as if he could do this bizarre film. But with the Looney Tunes involvement, was that kind of always part of the vision, or was that just, yeah, we've got everything else, let's throw them in there?
I think, well, first of all, it's a Warner Brothers property, so they're both from Warner Brothers. So I think that's an easy get right there. But it was the year that Bugs Bunny turned 50. It was his 50th birthday.
Ah.
So there were so many things happening that year. So they thought, well, maybe one of the ways that we'll honor Bugs Bunny is do a little Bugs Bunny cartoon before Gremlins 2. And then I think shortly after that, I did the voice of Bugs Bunny presenting the Oscar for Best Animated Short. in 1990. So again, the spotlight was really on Bugs because he had turned 50 then. So and then I did some other cartoons like Box Office Bunny, which is another sort of kind of cult favorite. And that, do you remember the movie Never Ending Story?
Yeah, vaguely, yeah. If you
Well,
can jog my memory on sort of the plot.
it was Never Ending Story Part Two. Okay, so it's a
Mhm.
very fantastical adventure. Gremlins. I mean, not Gremlins two. Never Ending Story Part Two. And at the beginning of it, we had a cartoon, a little Bugs Bunny cartoon that was really beautifully done. I mean, if you look at Box Office Bunny, you'll be able to see it on YouTube. You know, it's a beautiful cartoon. It's only 3 minutes long, but it's really fun.
Mm. Yeah. No, that's awesome. No, honestly, I can't believe the story that you've had. In that I've never heard anything like it. Just going from just being able to almost envision your own future, standing looking at it almost, to then just the weird coincidences that happen later down the line. I'm actually kind of lost for words. I've never heard anything like it.
Well, it's a funny thing. Is it what you're saying is interesting because if I have like say an aerial view of my life and I look overhead and look down, it's like, oh, that's why I did this and that's why I went there. But I think I got lucky because I stayed true to what it was that I loved. Like for example, when I was a little child, my first favorite cartoon was Yogi Bear because they were really cute and they were sweet. They weren't edgy like the Warner Brothers, and I didn't get the Warner Brothers jokes. It's 5 or 6 years old, but by the time I was like 7 or 8, then I started to get more into Bugs Bunny. But as a little kid, Yogi Bear, Huckleberry Hound, those were my cartoons, and so I never imagined that I would grow up. But well, the show Teen Titans and Jellystone. I got to do Yogi Bear, and hey, boo boo, I'm smarter than the average bear. Yee. I thought, oh my God, I was watching this in the 60s when I was a little kid. And here now I'm
Crazy.
getting to do it for like a big, cool show like Jellystone. So, and the characters were reimagined. They were a little faster and the dialogue was snappier, but it was still the same essence of those characters. So, I think that's part of it, Jaden. I think I just stayed true to what I always loved, and plus fact, I don't want to let my childhood go. I think doing all these characters kind of prolongs it.
True. Jeff, I've got to ask because something's just randomly popped into my head. Did you do the voice for Yogi in that the live action mix film that they did?
No, no, I didn't do that. I think that was I feel like that was Dan Aykroyd that did that. And I thought he did a
Yeah,
pretty
I
good job
can't
of that.
recall. I was just going to say I remember seeing it as a kid and thinking it was awful. So I'm really glad you said no.
But you know what though? He did make a quick appearance, Jaden, in Space Jam: A New Legacy, where I did
Oh,
Yogi.
really? Oh,
Yeah, it's like when they're all running and escaping, and like Yogi runs in, hey, boo boo. That was all I said, and then Fred Flintstone, I did Fred for Space Jam 2, where he just goes Yabba-Dabba-Doo. And they're real. They make a very fast cameo. So
yeah.
I mean, again, loads of fun. And never imagined that I would get to do the stuff that I was watching as a little kid. 50 years later, ooh, I'm dating myself.
I mean, yeah, it is wild to look back, isn't it? I mean, I got to say as well, this is a really obscure piece of knowledge that I'm about to throw your way. Did you know that you're also the voice of most major UK amusements, like the arcades?
Oh, yeah, that's so funny.
With claw machines, when you win on a claw machine, it's your iteration of Yabba-Dabba-Doo that plays when you win a prize.
Oh my God, that's so funny. I mean, I've done so many things, Jaden, over the years that I can't even remember, but uh, yeah, I think I did something that's like a bedrock, like where the Flintstones live, like a bedrock park thing. I mean, there's just so many things, that oh, that's cool. That's so
Yeah,
cool.
it's an obscure piece of knowledge, but I used to love like the crane games when I was a kid, and every time I'd win it, the
Yes.
Yabba-Dabba-Doo, I
Yes.
can't remember what it was from, but it was your iteration. It was because I did my research, and it's a clip of you saying Yabba-Dabba-Doo that plays when you win on a claw machine in the UK. It's most of them. It's crazy stuff. I hope you get royalties for that.
I'll have to check on that.
You better hope so now. Oh, so I mean, look, I mean, again, obviously, we've heard your story now, but do you have any advice for students that want to get into what you're doing? Obviously, they're not all going to have the opportunity to run up to the hotel room with their idols, but it's like, what would you say are some steps they should take to get to where you are now?
So now, are we talking students that are drama centric, or are we talking more
I,
general?
I imagine, I imagine students that are sort of already on somewhat of a pathway to the industry. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you one thing. When I was growing up in the 80s, if you didn't go into a comedy club, right, and you didn't have a chance to be seen by agents, I mean, you just had to just you make a tape and hope that, you know, I mean, okay. I'll tell you the quick story of how I got an agent, because it's hard to work in the industry if you don't have an agent. So,
Mhm.
once again, and this it will, I think, to some extent answer your question. If you can get out of your comfort zone and do something that's a little scary to yourself, okay, not everybody is going to knock on, a celebrity's door, a Taylor Swift's door at 2 o'clock in the morning, or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But when you get the no's, when people say no, all that really is you're being tested, meaning how committed are you to the thing that it is that you want, the thing that is that you love, and that you feel is your place in life. How much do you want it? How bad? And how much do you love it? And what are you willing to do? And so when you try for something and it's no, you're rejected, that's when you've got to come up with an alternate plan. So, while I was taking my finals at University of Pittsburgh, I was getting nervous because I thought, what am I going to do with my life? Oh my God. I had already met Mel Blanc already, but it was like, I'm going to graduate. And I'm going to go out into the world and say, what am I going to do? I can't go back to my parents. I love them, but.
In there, I'm there, currently there.
Right. Okay. Right. So you're currently there. So I was 23 years old at the time. And so I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take my demo tape, my voiceover tape, and I'm going to go to New York and I'm going to give it out to agents and I'm going to be a great big star. It's going to be great. Didn't quite happen that way. There was a book. It was called The Ross Reports. And in it, it gave all the names of all the talent agencies around New York City and Los Angeles. So it would tell you who the agents were and their addresses. But unfortunately, it said, please do not leave any pictures, resumes, or tapes. And I thought, well, how's anybody going to hear what I do if they don't want me to leave it? What is this? So I said, I'm going to do it anyhow. So I went to the talent agencies, dropped my tape. Well, there was nowhere to drop a tape off. And in those days, we didn't send links and no MP3s, none of that. We didn't have CDs then. It was a cassette. And it was in like one of those cheap plastic things. And then you
Oh
had to put
wow.
it in a box, or we had reel to reels with I mean, it was thick. So you couldn't leave that stuff anywhere. So I just went back to my parents and I said, I got to come up with something different. So that's when I got an idea. I said, I got one more talent agency I'm going to drop my tape off to. And it was the William Morris Agency, which was the biggest agency. And I thought, well, I got nothing to lose at this point. So I go back to New York City. And I think to myself, what if I dress up like a delivery boy? I'll be my own messenger and deliver my own tape. They have to accept it then. So I bought manila envelopes and receipt pads that looked very official, like was from a courier service. I looked like a young guy. I was young anyhow, in my 20s, so I looked like I'd be a messenger. I marched right up to the 32nd floor of the MGM building, and the elevator doors open, and I got that New York City welcome, which is, what do you want? And the receptionist.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, it's about. And the receptionist said to me, what do you want? And I said, I have a tape here that I want to, it's for the Carol Baker, the voiceover department. Could you please deliver it to her? And I used like a New York accent. I said, do me a favor, deliver this tape to the, Carol Baker, the voiceover department. I talked very fast because I was very uptight about it. And I knew I was very guilty. But I said, Jeff, stay strong. You can do this. Be calm. You could do it. So she looked at me a bit incredulous, thinking like she sees through the ruse, but she's gonna go with it anyhow. And so sure enough, she took my tape. Thank God. My heart stopped pounding, got back in the elevator, and I left, went back to Pittsburgh, forgot all about it. A couple of weeks later, I get a phone call. This is the William Morris Agency. We have a booking for Jeff Bergman for Liam Parent's Worcestershire sauce in New York City at 45th and 6th. Blah, blah, blah.
No way. Wow.
It
worked.
It worked. So what happened was the agent saw the tape. She thought, this guy's really good. They had gotten a call from an advertising agency. They needed somebody who could do a bunch of voices. So it's timing. It's all timing of things. And so I got the job before I even met the agents. So the assistant said, after you do the job, come up and you'll meet everybody. And so I did, and I signed with them for 7 years. They took a chance on me, but I had to think differently, creatively. And, what can you do to stand out, to be distinct, to get noticed? And I think it's the long answer, but I think, offering that kind of a parable, can get people thinking like, what can I do? So obviously social media, for anybody that wants to get known, if you're creating characters or you have impersonations or any kind of ideas, put them out there because it resonates with you, because you find it funny, because you find it interesting. Because what you find funny and interesting, I guarantee you, other people will. Other people will. 100%. 100%. And never, ever, 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 ever give up.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It's about having that relentlessness, like you, because I feel like we glossed over far too quickly there that you may have actually pulled off the espionage of all time. I am actually lost. You've once again lost me in that it's like how. So you just woke up one day and naturally, this didn't take you like multiple months to plan ahead. This didn't take a big elaborate scheme. You just immediately thought of this, what is pretty ingenious but also remarkably stupid idea.
Exactly.
And I actually cannot believe you pulled it off. It's one thing idealizing it, conceptualizing it. You actually did it. That's what.
Well, my father was so, he said to me, wait a second, you're going to go up to the William Morris Agency with cutoff shorts and a short sleeve shirt and present yourself there. I said, Dad, I got an idea. Something came to me. And so after that point, my father loved to tell that story. It was like my favorite story. Yeah. So, but it's just like, no, when someone says no, no is always maybe to me. No is maybe. It's not a yes necessarily, but what doesn't change. Here's the thing that doesn't change. Say you audition for somebody or you have an interview. What doesn't change is if you don't get the gig, you don't get the job. That doesn't mean that the interest or the desire or the love that you have for whatever it is that you went for, that doesn't change. That stays the same. So it's just, what I'll say is maybe divine timing, right? Say you have 15 interviews, right? And you don't get anything. And it's the 16th interview that you go on. And they start asking you questions. Well, what is it about this position or this job? Why do you see yourself in this? And you know what? You may have an answer that is so real and so raw that they go, wow. Not a stock answer, but an answer that is so, visceral. You just come across in a way where it's like, you know what? I've got nothing to lose. I'm going to be so real and so authentic, and it just comes out naturally. And I think that's what can happen. So you get it on the 16th interview because you've had the time to work on it. And then there's the divine timing element, because Believe me, I made a tape for Warner Brothers 2 years before the Tiny Toons audition, and it cost me over $1,000 to make this tape. I got it to my agent. They sent it to Warner Brothers, and they were like, "Yeah, thank you." That was pretty much what they said. And so I had to wait another 2 years. So I thought, well, okay. It didn't change the fact that I still really loved those characters. So I think it's a lot about what you're connected to, and to stay connected to that. And eventually you'll get there. Whether you're an animator or a writer or a director or an actor or some of those things all together, you just got to stay with what your passion is.
That's about divine timing as well. It's like that really can play a part because, like you say, you're not going to land everything. But again, me being, from my perspective, I totally get it because I was a taking journalism at university. We were assigned this project where we had to do work experience, and they said, "Oh, we're not providing it to you. You have to go out and find it yourself. That's what journalism is." And I was there, and I was like, "Well, what am I meant to do?" I go into my, my little, like my accommodations common room. I sit down, and I'm like, "What am I going to do?" I look to my left, magazine, student pages. I'm like, "Let me let me reach out to these guys." And what do you know? Here I am today. Like 70 odd interviews under my belt, 2 magazines, got my friend a job as well. It's like divine intervention, really.
That's right. That's right. Congratulations to you. That's a
Thank
great
you. No,
achievement.
same to you, obviously.
That's great. See, but it's something that just had to line up. And I think
Yeah.
that's an important thing. And sometimes it takes us a little time to develop our interview skills, and just to hone that. I think so that I think probably can fall into the divine timing thing. So, but yeah, I think it's not as complicated, I think, as we make it out to be.
Yeah, you just got to persist. Yeah, you're right about developing skills as well. You should have seen my first one of these interviews. I didn't even do an intro. I just jumped into it. It was only slightly awkward, but great chat eventually. But starting out, I was like, so how do you? Come on, man. It's an art form, isn't it? You got to train it.
Well, somebody said, I think it was one of the gentlemen on Shark Tank, about being a salesman. And I think everyone's a salesman. I just do. But some people just don't love that word. And so I think a better word is to be enthusiastic about what it is that interests you or what you like. So because we have to be salesmen. I mean, if you don't talk up what it is you want to do, or you have to provide the fanfare for it, get everybody all excited by it.
No, absolutely. I mean, so yeah, I mean, like we've discussed and touched on, you've had a very, very long time now in this industry, like you just said, so given your experience and given how long you've been around in this sort of space, what's something that you'd like to see change, or, what generally would you like to see in this industry moving forward from today?
That's an excellent question. I don't even know if anyone has ever asked me that question. Okay, well, I think the thing that I would love to see more of is more interaction with people that are applying for jobs, writing, acting, directing. So today, when you see a position, you've got to go through, I think sometimes 2, 3, even 4, online applications of that. So if you're lucky and you get to round 4 or 5, maybe that's an in-person meeting. And I just think there needs to be a little more contact, because when I would go up for a casting job, not only would I meet the casting director, an audition for the casting director, you know who was there? There was the writer and sometimes the art director. So the direction that we would get just for one commercial or one television show, we had so much context. It was all right there. Nowadays, we're in our closets, in our rooms, in our home studios, and we just have a little breakdown that says, this it's the voice of a pencil, and he's thin, and and he's got a mustache maybe, and he's cute and adorable, 20s to 40s. I mean, that's kind of what we get in terms of breakdowns. So we don't have the human contact, and so I think that's one of the reasons why the Monopoly thing actually worked out great, because they gave me a great description. I did 6 different versions. They evaluated those versions. They picked the ones they liked. Then we got on to Zoom. And then I did the voice for them just as I'm talking to you. And I said, I think I have an idea of what you like. Take 3 and take 5 and 6 together, and we get a hybrid, and this is it. And they went, that's it. That's the voice. But it was that connection that we have. I mean, I think that business can be negotiated on emails and text. Sure, it's quick, it's accessible, but it's not developing relationships. And I think what we're doing, or being on the phone, that's developing relationships. And obviously meeting in person, can be even greater. So I think I'd like to see more contact that we all have as writers, artists, directors, in all fields, actually. Just less less impersonal contact, more face.
I absolutely agree. Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I think, and I'm sure you'll agree with this, I think there's a pretty obvious reason as to why this shift has happened. And it's fully because of convenience. It is now more convenient for the, not necessarily the directors, and that they probably will want to meet the talent, but for the higher ups who make all the decisions, it is probably more convenient for them to do this all in a very digital, sterile way, and then channel it that way, rather than actually, like you say, when you were starting out and the way that processes used to be, there was more of a interpersonal link straight off the bat. And it's like, without that, can we really understand the talent as deeply? Like, is it as easy as it used to be to make a judgment call?
Yes. However, there is one great thing that happened in the pandemic, Jaden, and that is, who knew about Zoom? Who knew about Zoom?
True.
So like if you and I never would have had this really cool connection, and if it wasn't for, the pandemic. So technology is a blessing. It's a wonderful thing, because I would have had to go there or to come there, or you happen to be here in the United States. So it's really lovely when you think about what we can do. So
Absolutely.
yeah. So I think with what you said, and with, marrying, the good side of technology that does connect us, we can actually, find a place where they meet a little bit, more in the middle. So hopefully your generation and the ones after you are gonna get us there.
I only hope so. I'd love to see that change happen. I mean, yeah. So, I've got to ask. This is a bit broader of a question, I suppose. But for students who want to go into what you're doing, what challenges should they prepare for? Do you think? What are the challenges of doing what you do?
I don't know that I see any challenges. I don't think I see it that way, because when I got into the business in the early 1980s, yeah, there were challenges, but then there were challenges in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and 2010s, and there are now. And so I never really look at it. I don't think that way. I think I look at it, where's the opportunity? It was like, give you just an analogy as a callback to when Mel Blanc was at the University of Pittsburgh. Well, everybody that was a Pitt student that knew about that was on the level playing field, right? They knew he was going to be there if they saw the sign that said, Mel Blanc, voice of Bugs Bunny, appearing at Pitt. Well, I just happened to see that sign. So that was the opportunity. The second thing is finding the opportunity within the opportunity.
Yeah.
So if I audition for a voice, say I don't get it. Okay, well, I can whine about it and say, darn, I should have gotten that. Or I could say, well, I just created a great sample. I'll work on it, maybe get it even slightly better. And then it's a sample, and then I'll resubmit it, repurpose it, that is, and put it on my demo, send it to my agent. I've done that so many times. There's no such thing as anything that's a waste of time or I bummed, or I failed, or I made a mistake. Not at all. It's just an opportunity to just, tweak it and reorganize it and repackage it and put it in another way. So, yeah, I think the only battle that we'll ever have to deal with is the battle in our minds. And once you say to yourself, I can do it, I can do it. I just got to sit down, take my phone and just put it down and just not look at my text or my social accounts for 20 minutes and just do what I need to do. Good stuff's going to happen.
I love that mindset. I genuinely love that mindset, and there's so much you're saying that I can directly relate to. How you did what you did, going up to the hotel room. I'm going to a Comic-Con next month for the sole purpose of getting in front of Paul McGann so I can ask him to come on this series. I've met the guy before. I don't need to meet him again. I'm literally going just to ask him to get on an episode because he has no social media.
All right, now, Jane, here's what you do. You just get it in your mind exactly what you want to say, and you 100% real, just like you are with me. You have such an easygoing personality, and you just do it. And just be bold and just do it. And then you have to get back to me and tell me how it all turned out. Okay?
Oh, I will. I've already followed you on Instagram. I'll be in touch about that.
100%.
Like, if all else fails, I message you and I say, can Bugs Bunny convince him to be on the podcast? So if I can't do it, Bugs Bunny can.
Well, you got to get creative. That's it. And there you go.
That's what they say. That's
That's great.
All right. Yeah. No. I'll have to keep you updated on that. So, I mean, look, I've got two massive questions for you to end off on. These are very open-ended ones. So, first of all, again, obviously, you've got so many roles under your belt already, but you'll know, having the fact that you've voiced probably hundreds of characters at this point, that there's always more to be added. So what is a dream role for you? Existing or new character, what is a character that you would absolutely love to take on?
Well, the last time somebody asked me that was when Space Jam came out, and they said to me, what role would you really like to have? And I said, I would just love to be in a Pixar film like Toy Story and Mr. Potato Head. I just would love to be able to do that. And so that came true.
That manifested itself well, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what I would love to be able to do is I would really love to be able to do two different things. I'd love to be able to do a series or a film where all the Looney Tunes characters are together, but in a different setting. They're who they are. The essence of them is who they are. Because I think one of my favorite incarnations was the Looney Tunes show, where I was Bugs and Daffy. We lived in the suburbs. We were very much the odd couple. Where Bugs was rich, he invented the carrot peeler, and Daffy was, of course, still a freeloader and conniving, and the same kind of character. But it was very Seinfeldian in a way, even though the writers didn't say that. But that was my favorite show, and we have such cult fans of that show that know that show so well. And so I'd love to be able to do that. That would be tremendous. And then it would be just wonderful to do, more Pixar projects. I absolutely loved working with the people at Pixar. They were wonderful to work with. So when we do a follow-up one, I'll go into more detail about all of that with you. Okay.
No, absolutely. I mean, yeah, you might get the chance to work on new Pixar projects if they inevitably do Toy Story 6, 7, 8, 9. It's like the sequel economy is thriving at the moment, isn't it? So, chances are there.
It's very, yeah, I did. I don't know if you're familiar with the Marvel universe.
Yes, you were in What If, Odin.
Yeah. And, that was like, gosh, that was a dream come true, that job. And it was hard for me because being American, I will say, rarely am I ever intimidated by doing voices because I've just had so many challenges. But when Americans do English accents, I know that people, they can spot the phonies. They can spot the phonies. They see where we slip up. And of course, we Americans, when Australians or British do American accents, we just giggle because they'll do like the California sort of version, or they'll do the Southern version, whatever gets you there really quick. So when Anthony Hopkins, I mean, he's like one of our greatest actors, when he said he wasn't going to do it, I auditioned for that, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, you're talking about one of the greatest legendary actors. And so the audition that I did, I remember one of the lines was,
I knew I should have locked you away when I had the chance.
And I liked the line reading, but I thought, I'm going to add something to that. And again, this is kind of thinking, what can I do to get noticed? And so I did the same line. Oh, I added one thing, which was this.
I knew I should have locked you away when I had the chance.
It was just that little,
doesn't it?
sinister kind of arrogant laugh that he had that helps inform. So, and I approached it completely different. The take was different. And so I love working on that series, and I'd love to do more stuff for Marvel too. Yeah, they're wonderful. I mean, Disney's great to work with. They really are. They care so much about their characters. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely incredible. No, 100%. Yeah. So, I mean, look, now that you've said it, you've willed it into existence. It's going to happen now. It's like we've seen it happen before. It's going to happen again. And again, look, I know this one's going to be tricky for you. I imagine people have asked you it in the past, and I also imagine that you're probably not going to have an answer for it. But out of everything you've done, do you have a proudest achievement? Is there a shining standard for what you do, or are you just, or is it like a family? Can you not love one more than the others?
Huh. Well, I heard Michael Caine say, well, sometimes the project is terrible, but the director's great. Sometimes the director's not so great, but the script is wonderful. Sometimes the director's awful, the script is terrible, but the ensemble that you worked with is terrific. So there's always something really great, about all the projects that I've done. There's always something. I mean, anything Looney Tunes I've always loved. But again, the Looney Tunes show probably would be my maybe favorite of the Looney Tunes, because the writers and I were very much in sync, and they made it really easy for me. And then, it just was like a shorthand we had as writer and actor. So they were writing for, we just got it, we just knew the show. And when that happens, it's just magic, films are difficult to do because we often don't get a full script. We get scenes. And so they're also developing. And that was what Space Jam, as cool as it was these little micro scenes that we had. And so, and then, it was on Zoom. So I did the whole thing, while I was on, a Zoom call, the whole film we did during the pandemic. And so I'm looking at the director, and it was different than being, just in the studio together. But it was actually kind of, in a weird way, it was very intimate, like this is, you can't be doing 5 other things, right? Otherwise I won't see you on the screen, and I can't be looking at my phone or, doing a lot of other things, because like we're going to lose the connection, Mm-hmm. So I liked working on Space Jam, I think, because we had that, intimacy, there's always something good about anything, I mean, people were upset that they couldn't go into recording studios, and I get that, but there was something really cool. It's like, oh, there's the director, there's the script supervisor, there's the engineer, there's the art director, there's the animation director. And it, after like a few sessions, it actually was cool. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Because again, it's like, if you've got the passion for the craft, and if the same resources are still there, even if they're in a different way, you work with what you've got.
Right. Right. And I think that's really the answer to the question, is that you can make every project, something about it can be exciting and fun and beneficial and positive. The whole thing might not be, you might have started late. The director was, I mean, I had one project where I'm not going to mention who the director was, but it was a very famous director, and it started off a little rocky because I was supposed to be in Los Angeles, and I happened to be traveling to be with family. But as soon as I got into the job, he was like, "Wow, this is great. You're great." So, and again, that ended up being a great session, but a little rocky when we got started, But it's
Wow.
always something
Yeah.
good,
Mm. No, absolutely. Yeah. So, you've got so much to be proud of, It's like, yeah, but yeah, like you said, Looney Tunes, it's got to be up there. But yeah, absolutely. There's always something positive to be taken away from any experience, right? Especially in the industry that you're in.
Absolutely, yeah, 100%. I believe that. I mean, here's a really last funny, interesting story. Is showing up when people ask you to do something and you never know. I got friendly with a writer at an advertising agency back in the early '90s. He calls me up at 9, 10 o'clock at night. He said to me, "Could you meet me at the United Nations building at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning?" I said,
No.
I said, "Mark, the United Nations, like the in New York City, United Nations?" He said, "Yeah." Can you do it? And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "What's it all about?" He said, "I'll tell you when you get there. Just trust me." Okay.
As you
So
do.
I don't want to tell you. That's like a 2 hour commute, train, car, the whole thing. I show up at 9 a.m. and there is my friend Mark Katz, who, we were like colleagues more than maybe friends at that point, but we had worked together. He had hired me for voiceover jobs. And so who's there but Ambassador Albright, Madeleine Albright, who then years later would become Secretary of the State of the United States, okay, to Barack Obama. So she was giving a speech for the Gridiron Dinner, it's kind of like a roasting, and everybody shows up at the dinner, and all the politicians and congressmen and senators and former president, they all come and they all poke fun at each other. It's a fun dinner. Well, Madeleine Albright was so serious, and my friend was a speechwriter. I didn't know that. I just knew him as a writer for advertising agency, commercial copy. But he was a speechwriter and wanted to do more speeches. So anyhow, he writes this speech. It's hilarious. He gives it to me. He said she's reading it like she has a gun to her head. He said, "Could you do me a favor? Read the speech, do the comedy, show her how it's to be done." So I read it, and she said, "Boy, that's terrific." She said, "Do you mind if I take my cassette out and record you doing it, and then I'll have it?" And I said, "Sure." So, I did it for her. Anyhow, she went, did the speech. It was a gigantic success. She was like the hit of the whole event. The Washington Post, the New York Times, they all came out with that she was the hit. So guess what happened to my friend Mark? Okay. Mark is at the dinner, and who comes up to him but Bill Clinton and says to him, "Could you write me a speech like that?" And so then he started to write for Bill Clinton, and then he wrote a book. And so, I mean, it's crazy, right? And that was 30 some years ago, 33 years ago, 34 years ago. And so Mark and I reacquainted. We had just lost contact because he lives in New York. I live in Los Angeles. And so we've now worked again on a couple of projects. So, relationships are so important. And I think so much of him. And here we reacquainted ourselves after all these years. He's still doing speech writing, but he's successful, and so I always think about that. It's like that's such a unique and strange opportunity, but I'm glad I did it because I would not have the experience and obviously wouldn't be able to tell that story. But again, it's opportunity. It's seeing, you never know where something is going to go.
You know what? It's like I know a lot of people have referred to you as the man of many voices, but I tell you what, after this conversation, to me, you're the man of many stories. I've never quite heard so many out there, no way that's true type stories in my life, especially not in one of these calls. That is, you may have set a new record there for this series, to be honest.
Oh, Jade, that's very nice. Well, it's been my pleasure to do it. And when we do a follow up one, I'll have other ones that I didn't tell you. And then we'll talk about, Toy Story 5 as well.
Oh, please do, Jeff. Right. So, I mean, yes, thank you ever so much for coming on. It's been an incredible chat. Thank you to everyone at home for watching as well. This has been Jaden for Student Pages. If you wouldn't mind signing the spotlight session off in your characters' voices, that would be incredible.
Well, it's been a pleasure. I realize that I don't get to sign off like Bugs Bunny does. That's true, Doc. But I think what we gotta do is we gotta give it to Porky. Porky, would you do it? Thanks so much for doing such a wonderful in-depth interview with me, Jaden. And to all the students out there, keep reaching for your dream for the stars. So for now, that's all, folks.
Unbelievable. Thank you, everyone, ever so much. Thank you, Jeff. And I'll see you next time.